we are getting word on the first count that Donald Trump is guilty. Now remember, there are 34 counts that we will go through. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty. Count 4, guilty. Count 5 and 6, guilty. Count 7, guilty. Count 8, guilty. Count 9, guilty. Count 10, guilty. Count 11, guilty. Count 12, guilty. Count 13, guilty. Count 14 and 15, guilty. Count 16, guilty. Remember, this is a unanimous decision by the jury on each of these counts. Count 17, guilty. Count 18, guilty. Count 19, guilty. Count 20, guilty. Count 21, guilty. Count 22, guilty. Count 23, guilty. Count 24, guilty. Count 25, guilty. Count 26, guilty. Count 27, guilty. Count 28, guilty. 29, guilty. Count 30, guilty. Count 31, guilty. Count 32, guilty. Count 33, guilty. Count 34, guilty. Donald Trump has been found guilty on all counts of falsifying business records in an attempt to cover up these alleged relationships in the New York hush money trial. It's an extraordinary moment.
Nora, to hear you read what you just read is a moment of enormous gravity for this country. We cannot overlook that. To hear that word, guilty, not just once, but 34 times about a former president of the United States in any context is completely uncharted territory. And there will be a raging debate across this country about the propriety of bringing these charges. But under our system, a grand jury heard the evidence. A grand jury rendered an indictment. And through all due process, the former president was accorded all due process rights. And a jury of his peers assembled in New York in this courthouse found him guilty on all charges. This is not just a legal moment for this country. It is not just a political moment for this country. It is a moment where everything about politics and law and our orientation to both are convulsed as never before.
Donald Trump has become the first former president ever convicted of a crime. I want to bring in Robert Costa, who has covered Donald Trump for a long time and written books about Donald Trump. I can only imagine what the former president is doing right now.
Nora, this is the conclusion of a trial, but it's only the beginning of a fight. I've already gotten new reporting from Trump's sources. They are planning to appeal this decision as much as they can, and they plan to mount a grievance war across the country. To echo what Major said, this is a moment of seriousness for the country on a legal, political, and democratic front, because you now have a presumptive Republican nominee who will be mounting an appeals process as he heads toward the Republican convention, and he has the Republican Party behind him. It was here in the park, steps away, that the Speaker of the House, second in line to the presidency, Mike Johnson, came here to say, we stand with Trump. So many have come here wearing red ties and saying that Trump is our candidate, regardless of whether he's convicted of a crime in New York City. Here in deep blue Manhattan right now, there were cheers that went up in the park around us as the conviction was made clear to the crowd that has been gathering here. But from Trump supporters across the country, there is anger and frustration right now. And Trump campaign officials are arguing this is going to make Trump stronger inside the party. But now, as a convicted felon, it could raise new questions about maybe not his nomination for the Republican Party, but Democratic sources really believe some swing voters in places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, in the suburbs across the country might start to say, do we really want to have a convicted felon in the White House? It's a tag that Trump can no longer escape.
It's an important, we're talking about a legal issue right now, but a political issue as well, as you point out. I want to go straight to Errol Burnett, who is right outside, who can give us a sense of what's happening there outside the courtroom. Errol?
Nora, two angles I can give you. Outside the courthouse, we're hearing some sense of cheering and people yelling guilty. The courthouse directly behind me, while our reporters inside are painting some of the color as the foreperson read out the verdict. It was very similar, Nora, to the way you read this out. It was quiet and somber inside the courtroom, with former President Donald Trump seated as the defendant, looking at the jury as the foreperson, leaning with his left arm on a railing and a right hand holding the microphone, slowly 34 times said guilty as the judge was asking for the jury's verdict on these felony counts. Then the judge asks the jury, is this accurate? Is this the proper reflection of your verdict? They said yes. And during this entire time, Donald Trump staring intently at each of the jurors, the lawyers standing with their hands clasped, and the jurors at this moment being thanked by the judge for their service. Judge Merchant acknowledging that these past 6 weeks have been stressful for them. Let's not forget, some jurors that were selected early dropped out and buckled under the pressure, the media spotlight, and the importance of the moment. But inside the courthouse, a somber moment as Donald Trump, former president of the United States, GOP presumptive nominee, had to sit and listen as a defendant as a jury of 12 of his peers found him guilty on all 34 felony counts. This was the moment that Donald Trump became a felon.
Errol Burnett, thank you so much. Want to bring in our legal panel. Again, former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney and CBS News legal contributor Rebecca Roiphe joins me again. And Rebecca, let's talk about this. Donald Trump is 78 years old, a first-time offender in the eyes of the New York court system. Will he go to jail? What do you think happens?
We really won't know until the sentencing. I think that, he's certainly not going to jail for the rest of his life on these counts, but there is a real possibility of some jail time. And of course, any jail time for somebody in his position of his age is a significant thing right now. One other thing that has struck me about this case is there has been so much criticism of the case. And in a way, this verdict does vindicate Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, who brought this and defended it as a case that is quite standard for New York and for Manhattan. And, of course, when all eyes are on our local justice system, sometimes things look unusual, bizarre, different. But in many ways, this is not as different from other cases as some people suggested it was. And the evidence, as we can tell from this quick, strong verdict, was fairly strong.
Rebecca, thank you. I want to bring in Caroline Pelosi. She's a criminal defense attorney and lecturer in law at Columbia Law School. And on that same point, Caroline, because I think people want to know not only what happens to Donald Trump, what happens in this presidential election, which is now 6 months from now. The question before the judge in terms of sentencing, prison time, or there could be probation, right? What are some of the things that the judge will consider?
Absolutely. It is within the judge's discretion. There is no mandatory minimum jail sentence for these crimes. I totally agree with Rebecca. This is a huge win for Alvin Bragg. This case had a long and winding road to get here. Remember, it was called the zombie theory. It just wouldn't die. It spanned over two different district attorneys. People resigned in protest for the ways that they felt about whether or not the case was being brought. But this will mark the beginning of a lengthy appellate process. I like to point to the Harvey Weinstein verdict being overturned. That took soup to nuts 4 years. Justice takes time. So there are many legal issues here that I think are ripe for review. I don't know that that any will take the day, but certainly there are meritorious arguments to be made. But when you're thinking about potentially putting a presidential candidate in jail, there are some considerations to be had. But I would note he was not, a stellar defendant during this case. Those are aggravating factors. These issues with the gag order, his behavior throughout the trial, that could potentially be a factor in Judge Merchan's analysis of whether or not to impose jail time here. Also, things like remorse. It does not seem as though the former president is at all remorseful for any of these actions. We'll have to wait and see for the arguments that are made in the sentencing memoranda.
It's a good point, Caroline. As you note, Judge Merchan has found Donald Trump that violated his gag order 10 times during this trial.